Hi, I'm Tess,
Hi, I'm Sarah, and we are.
the Happy Edit Sisters. Happiness isn't just being happy, it's an embodied feeling that starts with how we approach life, our actions, and our mindset. Everyone has a range of emotions, and that's a good thing.
Join us as we dive into what it means to be happy and how we build a foundation for happiness through different lenses.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Tess. So today we've got the lovely Mark as our guest. So Mark is a psychotherapist qualified in CBT and EMDR therapy. And Mark works across the UK, both in person and online. Mark is also one of the founders and co-hosts of the Therapy Shed podcast. And he describes his happy place when he has fuss time with his lovely dog. So, Mark, would it be okay if you tell us a little bit more about you?
Yeah, of course. Hello, you lovely people. How you doing?
Good, good.
Nice to see you both. Yeah, of course. I think you've covered a lot of the main bases, Sarah, there. My name is Mark. I'm a psychotherapist in the UK. I'm qualified. My main therapeutic approach, if you want to call it that, my main qualifications are in CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy, and EMDR as well. So that's eye movements, desensitization and reprocessing therapy. And I've been practicing now for about 6 years now. And obviously just developed my practice over that time, really. I've worked with lots of different groups of people of all shapes and sizes and age ranges. I did a lot of work with children and young people, which is actually how I met your good self, Sarah.
It is. It is. We've known each other for a little while now, Mark, haven't we? And worked together. So Mark's one of my good friends, and me.
Indeed, yeah. Mate, that's always a word I associate with you. I just go, how you doing, mate?
Me too. I think it's a thing that you just associate with people from Manchester in general.
Yeah, very Mancunian term, yeah. So I worked with I say children, young people. They always used to keep us on our toes. Would you say, Sarah, working with
Yeah.
youngsters?
Yeah, definitely. I'm working in that like multidisciplinary kind of way as well, and other professionals and things like that kept us definitely busy.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And of course, yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a co-host of the Therapy Shed podcast. We've been myself and my co-host Brian Jones. We've been doing the podcast now for a little while, and that's great fun. I enjoy doing them. And I appreciate you inviting us on today to have a good chat about happiness.
It is
Mark,
fun,
it's
isn't it, to
great.
have that co-host connection, like having the podcast, having those chats with each other, and then as well, like bringing on other people to so it's not just, I don't want to say monotonous, but like it's not just us chatting, which is fun for sure, but it's always nice to have someone else come on and kind of add a different flair to what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's similar when on the Therapy Shed podcast, it's always fun to have guests on. It kind of invites another dynamic, you might say, another flow to the conversation. But also it's nice to go back as well to just the two of you, isn't it?
Yeah,
To talk
definitely.
about the guests when they're not there, so you can say what you really think of them.
Oh, definitely. And that's all on air as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So Mark, what does happiness mean to you?
I think it's a great question. I think it changes over time, well, it certainly has for me. What does happiness mean to me? I know it's a platitude. It is such a cliche, but it really is that it's that everyday experiences, trying to connect with your values, the things that you're interested in, the things that you find a sense of pleasure, relaxation in. And I think, if I can say, almost a trap that I fell into when I was much younger, certainly in my teens, in my early 20s, is you're kind of almost waiting for something to bring you happiness. You know what I mean? You're waiting almost for almost like a jackpot moment. Something is I'm working towards what is often like an elusive kind of nondescript thing. And when that happens, that's when I'll have happiness and be content and so on. And it is such a myth, that's not how we function as humans, really. It is the everyday kind of, as I say, connecting with your values, connecting with things that make you smile, that make you kind of have a meaningful moment. I don't know if that answered the question, or did I go round in circles there? Did that answer the question?
No, I think that's super important, right? What you're saying is like, and we've touched on this before as well. Like, it's so important to realize that happiness doesn't have to be that next big thing, right? And it often it isn't, right? It's the small moments that we have every single day that, as you say, bring us joy, that make us smile, and it's so important to come back and focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you, Tess. I think it's kind of, in therapy, and I'm sure you guys do similar with the people you work with. In therapy, I often will talk about things like grounding exercises, and essentially what we mean with grounding exercises are everyday things, being present with them, noticing your life, noticing what's actually happening in the here and now. And again, I appreciate that it can sound like a bit of a cliche, almost like a meme, a cliche statement, but there is a lot of substance to that cliche, to that kind of understanding that being present and not waiting for happiness to happen, I think is crucial, really.
Definitely.
Sarah,
yeah, sorry, I completely agree with you, Mark. And, I'm sure we've had lots and lots of conversations when we've worked together as well about how quite often people live in the past or the future, don't they? And actually to bring them into the present and the here and now is a really important thing. Because I think kind of that wait for happiness, it reminded me of those goals. And, obviously in CBT, we kind of have those SMART goals, don't we? But those goals quite often shift, don't they, as well? And they get further and further away, or higher and higher and higher. And it's about enjoying those moments in the here and now.
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. And those goals are important. We always connecting to our future self is crucial, isn't it, for our mental health? As we know, it's important to have things that we're working towards that give us a sense of purpose and direction in ourselves, in life. So they're part of happiness, really. They're part of your self-worth and valuing yourself and your life. But if those goals are, I guess, to come back to what I mentioned earlier, if those goals are, once that happens, that's when I'll then reconnect with myself. That's only the time that I'll be present and acknowledge things that actually I enjoy, that make me smile, that make me feel warm, that make me feel connected. I think that's sometimes a trap that we can all fall into. We think once I achieve the goal, that's when I'll kind of open my eyes to what might be bringing me happiness. And the reason why I say that's a trap is because it's actually again, I feel like I'm on a cliche bingo card today, but it is the journey rather than the actual crossing the finish line that often is what enriches us the most. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's something that I also see, like, not just with like my private clients for stress and burnout, but also within just a yoga class, right? And like so many people get this idea, like in this physical yoga class, oh, I need to be able to do this pose, and that's what's going to make me happy. Once I get there, oh, that's going to be amazing. If I can do the headstand, then that's, you know, that's my goal. And it's like you say, it's not bad to have the goal, but also realize the process that you're going through, and like noticing those incremental changes. Maybe your shoulders are getting stronger, maybe your core is getting stronger, so that you can, you know, start lifting your knees up just a little bit off of the ground, like, or whatever pose it is that you're doing, or whatever it is that you're working towards. Maybe it's, you know, a lifestyle change as well that you're working towards, and you're, you know, trying to work on not, you know, if you're building in a boundary or something, and, you know, and you're at work and you're just always at work, and you go home and you're at work, you know, and like starting to take those steps back, like whatever it is that's going on in your life. I think it's really important that we realize it's not a bad thing to have these goals, as you're saying, but it's also really important to say, okay, this is where I'm at now, and this is the joy of it, this is the beauty of it, because the process is life. As you say, it's the journey. It's not the destination.
Absolutely, Tess. And do you know, the interesting thing you often find is, in doing that, in connecting with your present self, you know, and valuing and validating the process, it actually helps you to achieve your goals as well, you know, because your self-worth improves by saying, to continue with your example there, Tess, you know, if you're recognizing those stepping stones that you're moving through to get to doing the headstand. Just side note, I'd love to be able to do a headstand, because I do enjoy yoga, but I'm too scared. I feel like something terrible is going to happen if I just, you know, go over that like point of gravity. So maybe you can help me out with that, Tess.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where it's like you build up to it little by little, right? You don't just go straight into a headstand. Like you build up your confidence, and I think that's part of the journey, right? It's building up your confidence to whatever you're going towards, whatever goal it is. And so you would try something much smaller, and then you feel confident that, okay, let's try that next step. And just to put this out there, to do yoga, nobody has to do a headstand. Like like yoga is not about headstands or the poses in general. It's about that connection with yourself. It's about loving yourself, and enjoying that process, right? And so the headstand was the example, and I totally agree. It's fun. It does. It makes you feel like, oh, I can do this. At the moment, because I have a back injury, like doing headstands is not something that's in my practice at all, where it used to be a lot before. And for a while I was like, oh, I'm not doing this properly, right? But then I realized, no, like little by little I'm getting stronger and I can do more. And I think that that's important to look at. So even if you were able to do it before, right?
Yeah.
Just because you can't do it now doesn't mean that you've also, like, quote unquote, failed. I don't like that term, but, you know, like you're not regressing. Your journey is changing. And I think that that's also really important. When you start looking at those moment to moments, you go, okay, right? Like maybe I couldn't do that before, or I could do that before, but I'm not being pulled back. I'm just, my trajectory has changed a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree completely, Tess. And, you know, that's an interesting thing as well, when you were talking there. So yoga, again, going back a few years, it was never really on my radar, you know, it wasn't in my awareness to do something like yoga. It was either, if you want to do physical, and it's a physical kind of activity, then you go to the gym, or maybe play football or something like that, or that's it, you know, or you don't, essentially. And this is something I think is definitely something that I think is great to share around the idea of what is happiness. Like you mentioned, guys, sometimes you don't know what's going to bring you happiness as well. And this is a thing that, you know, something we're all susceptible to. You know, the brain likes to confirm a bias, you know, something that we believe about ourselves. I know what makes me happy. I know the type of people I like, and so on and so on. That's not a flaw in your mind. That is part of how the brain operates. You know, it's what we might call confirmation bias. where we're biased towards things that we already believe, you know, and the brain will automatically give it attention, you know, and filter in information that reinforces what we already believe. And that includes beliefs about ourselves, of course. So going back to yoga, that, as I say, that was something that was never really on my radar. And anytime it would certainly, as I say, I'm going back to kind of my younger self, is I suppose I'd have been a bit dismissive really of yoga, because it wouldn't have been something that I wouldn't do, you know. And then I had a car accident, not intentionally, you know. I was in a car accident, it wasn't
I
planned.
hope not.
Yeah. Luckily everybody was safe, but obviously there was injury. So I had a back injury as a consequence of this being in this car accident, and it was really disruptive, as back injuries tend to be. You know, it was painful, but it was also disrupting pretty much everything in my life. And a friend of mine just said, you know what, why don't you try some yoga? He said, there's tons of stuff online and on YouTube and so on. And I remember thinking, well, I may as well, because I've never done it before. I don't think it's going to work for me, but you know what, that could help. And I trusted his word. He's a good friend of mine. And so I started doing some yoga, and almost immediately I thought, this is pretty cool. I like this. This is not really, you know, strenuous as such. I appreciate yoga can be, if you want to take it that far, but you can do, which is something I do now. As a minimum, I'll do 10 minutes of yoga every morning. And it really is enriching, you know. It just gives a sense of you're connecting with yourself, you're waking up your mind and your body. It's great for breathing exercises as well. I really would, you know, recommend that. But I guess the bigger point I'm making with sharing this, guys, is that does bring me happiness. You know, that's an everyday thing that I do, which is 10 minutes every morning. And it does give me a sense of, it makes me smile. It makes me feel a bit more positive about myself and obviously just my day. And that's something I would never have envisaged, you know, about myself, that's something that would bring me happiness. So I guess the main overall point I'm making with that is new experiences, the unknowns in them, often can bring us a sense of happiness, I would say, as well.
That's great, Mark. It's really great to hear, you know, what things support your happiness and what brings you happiness, how that's changed over time as well. You know, as we grow and develop, how that changes. There's something that Tess and I have spoken about quite a lot, really, is that it doesn't have to be something that's kind of like a really long piece of like exercise, or, you know, something really significant. It can be that 10 minutes, can't it, you know, in the morning, of doing that yoga in the morning, that you've really noticed brings you a lot of happiness and you know, and it sounds like a lot of joy as well into your life. Is there any other things that support your happiness, do you think, that you might do?
My dog. I think anybody who knows me, that's the first thing they'd say is, well, in fact, any time I catch up with anybody, like your good self, Sarah, the line that everybody seems to say is, oh, hi Mark, how's Roxy, which is my dog's name. So they ask about my dog before they ask about me. It's kind of an association. But yeah, it's true. But yeah, it's that, again, a sense of routine, you know. Yeah. On a dog walk every morning, gets me outdoors. Some mornings I wake up and, like anybody else, I think, oh, I just cannot be bothered today. Or there's reasons. Your mind will always find reasons to stay in bed or to not do that thing that you think, I'm not feeling the motivation. And that's where the routine is crucial, really, I would say. So yeah, that's a huge kind of scaffold for me around that's, you know, that sense of happiness and feeling good about myself, my day. The morning dog walk, that's a big one for me.
Definitely. And I've had the pleasure to meet Roxy a few times as well. Yeah. So we've been on a run together and Roxy came and joined us. And when I've popped round for a cup of tea and Yeah, Roxy was there,
So great.
wanting lots of strokes and cuddles, and
Oh
she's
yeah,
lovely.
she is. She's a fuss monster. She loves it.
I think, you know, pets and so often bring an amazing amount of joy, right?
Yeah.
And I like that you say, like, you know, this routine of like, oh, you have to do it. So I don't have a dog, I have a cat. And I work from home. So I sit in front of a computer a lot, working with people or just like organizing things, whatnot. And after a amount of time, she's like, no, you have to come play with me. You know, it's like tap tap tap, hey, let's go do something. Like, you've been sat there for too long. And I love that as well. Like, it's maybe it's not a quote unquote routine, but it is a routine that we have. Like, she comes up, she says, I need attention. Okay, like, let me give you attention. And that gives me joy as well, right? Because it's fun to watch her play, and it's fun to play with her and mess around and, you know, throw something for her. She's a little dog, really. Like, we play catch as well, and fetch, and we play hide and seek as well. Gets me moving around the house, running away from her, and she'll follow, and then she'll run away, and I'll have to go after her. You know, the same.
Well, you mentioned there, Tess, about play, and that is something that comes up so often with clients in therapy, because we talk a lot, as you mentioned earlier, Tess, about stress and burnout. You know, the pace of life and you know, contemporary society is. I would say, unfortunately, quite often it's built into the equation that stress and burnout, you know, seem to be a part of life, unfortunately. And so often with clients in therapy, it is, when was the last time you allowed yourself to play? When was the last time you allowed yourself to feel like a child, to do what we would associate as childish things? You just mentioned them, like playing hide and seek, you know, playing a game. And the amount of times clients of all different backgrounds and shapes and sizes will say, oh, I haven't done that for a long time, but that's kind of, I haven't got time to do that. And it comes back to that thing, doesn't it? If you haven't got 5 minutes to play, you should be trying to play for an hour every day. You know, it's the more you're thinking you haven't got time to do something, it's actually, that's the more that need has grown to the point where being playful is crucial for our mind and our mental health, you know, and happiness, of course.
Yeah, and our physical body as well, right? Like, it's all like, when you're playing, you're laughing, you're releasing that stress, you're releasing the tension that you're holding, you're releasing it from the head, but also from the body. You're changing your hormone, you know, release as well. Like, all of it's combined, and it is, and it's fun. It's fun to be silly. Sarah and I were just talking earlier also about, like, you know, just having those moments of like that you feel like a little kid again, you know, like going out and walking, and like maybe you're in a forest and you see like a little stream and you're like, oh, there's a stream, you know, like, oh, let's follow it, you know, just being silly like that, you know, just not having many cares and just enjoying the moment. And I think that's what play does, is it helps you enjoy the moment. It helps you not focus on your stresses, your worries, and just be silly.
Yeah, absolutely, Tess. And again, yeah, as you say, being present, being very much in the moment. Often with clients, we'll talk about, and you know, I have to remind myself about this from time to time, is those kind of different areas of the mind. Sometimes I use the two brains. So it's the emotional brain, the anxious brain. That's crucial. We need that brain. You know, that's our survival brain. But that's the dominant brain as well. That's the fastest and the strongest area of the overall mind, because it's the survival brain. But if we don't allow ourselves to just release sometimes and to be playful and silly, you know, and reconnect with the things that really bring us joy and happiness, the thinking kind of cognitive brain doesn't really get much of a look in. So it's an imbalance then in the mind, you know. And again, and like you say, it's not that your stresses and worries will be there after you've played, you know, and after you've had fun and so on. It's not that you're being neglectful in any way, or you're losing ground in your life or even in your day. It actually enriches you. It gives you that sense of release, so that you've got fresh eyes and a fresh sense of energy, you know. You often find that helps for you to then, tackle your problems and, your day-to-day routines.
Definitely.
Definitely. It is really important. And Mark, I think you know me quite well, that I like to have a bit of a laugh and be a bit silly. And, that's something that I'm always really mindful to bring into my own life and into the therapy session as well. And, even in those most difficult conversations and most difficult sessions, to try and allow humour to come in to that as well. And I think that's so important. And I know that, when we've worked together, we might have been having a really particularly difficult day, we might have been to a really difficult meeting, but then actually we've been able to kind of, just have a few moments and being able to laugh, and just bring that, I kind of think of me being a bit silliness back to the day. And it's been so helpful. And yeah.
Yeah, I definitely did notice that in you, Sarah, when we worked together.
Don't know what you mean.
Yeah, you were the greatest distraction anyone could wish for. But it's so true. It's that thing of, having people, even just one person in your life who you can share that release with, that moment of, humor is a great, again, to use that, I guess slightly therapy term, that grounding exercise. Humor is a great grounding exercise, breaking down the intensity of a moment. That doesn't undermine the significance of the moment, or it doesn't dismiss how you're feeling about something or how other people are feeling about it. It just allows some air into the room, and humor is a great way of doing that, I think. And as you say, yeah, working as a therapist and in any setting, really, you're obviously listening. At times you're working and listen with intense and what can be, really upsetting experiences for people. So that release is even more important then, having that sense of, let's just allow ourselves to breathe. And laughter and humor is a great way of doing that, is allowing you. There's a great definition I heard of, or yeah, I suppose it was a description rather of laughter once that I always keep with me. It's when we laugh, we're allowing people into us. We're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, and people actually see us for who we are when we really laugh. And I quite like that.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's so good. So, Mark, is there any advice that you would give to your younger self? Like, if looking back, like as you mentioned before, like your perception of happiness has changed. So looking back, is there anything that you'd be like, okay, if I could go back and tell my younger self something, what would it be?
Yeah, I like that question, Tess. I would say, I think I touched on this earlier, but I really would say, stop waiting for life to happen. Stop waiting for happiness, because it will never arrive. You will never have as fulfilling a day, as fulfilling a sense of self when you're waiting for that jackpot moment. It definitely does come back to that. And that's what I think is a change for me as I've gotten, I suppose, as I've grown, as I've gotten older, is the jackpot moment doesn't arrive, because even when you do have those wins, we might say, those big achievements or big events that we feel that was fantastic, that was a real standout thing, a life event, it often doesn't do what you want it to do anyway. I'm not saying I'm somebody who's had lots of those kind of, winning medals or whatever it may be, and winning jackpots of any sort, but I think in any experience, and it comes up in therapy quite often, that something will happen for a client, they share it with you and they say, it's nothing like I thought it would be, whether it's becoming famous or earning lots more money. Yeah, of course those things can, they can feel great, and sometimes for, depending on the person, that type of shift in your life can be great, but it often doesn't it doesn't bring happiness in the way that I think often people want or expect it to. So I think my advice to my younger self would definitely be, stop waiting for happiness to happen and actually just be more present in yourself, you know.
That's wonderful. That's so nice. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Mark, at the end of every episode, we like to offer the listeners a happy edit tool. And if it's okay, we would like to invite you to share something with the listeners that for maybe them to kind of do for themselves, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Something to do that brings happiness. Something I'd say, guys, I think learning something new can be really cool for connecting with yourself, with developing yourself, of course, as well, but just enriching yourself and bringing a sense of happiness, hopefully, as well. Learning something new. And I think the main reason why I say that is because sometimes we think, I now know what gives me happiness, I'll just keep doing those things. And it makes sense. Why, that's a completely rational kind of mindset to have. But we have what we call what we call in therapy the habituation effect, and it's essentially ever diminishing returns. We don't get the same effect from things the more we do them. The mind tends to habituate towards them, so it becomes less impactful. If you find things that are bringing you happiness, great. I'm not saying for a second change it every day, but I would say learning something new, leaning into an anxiety or something that you think, well, I'm not sure if I'll like this, try it, because you'll probably learn something from it. If nothing else, you'll learn something about yourself as well, and that often, I think, does bring a sense of warmth and happiness.
Oh, that's so good. And that goes back to what you were talking about before about you starting yoga, and
yeah.
I really like that connection there, because it's something that you never even thought about, right? And so it doesn't have to be something that we think about. It doesn't have to be something like, oh, I've always wanted to learn this. If you wanted to do that, great, but it could be something completely new that you had no idea even existed, and it comes up into your life and you go, oh, well, let me just try it out, see how I get on with it. And maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but it's that discovery of, and maybe a new skill, a new hobby that you might have. And then also discovery, as you're saying, of yourself, and what you don't like, and maybe that has changed over the years, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like meeting new people, or going to a new place. I guess a new language is something that is a popular one with a lot of people, learning a new language, but it can be an everyday thing, just changing the park that you walk around with your dog, just to go back to my favorite pastime. But it really, absolutely, Tess, it's that just, and the one thing I'd say with new experiences as well is it's completely normal, and in fact it's your brain doing its job to feel hesitant, to be skeptical, or to feel resistant to a new experience, because a new experience involves unpredictability and uncertainty. And to go back to what I was saying earlier, the emotional brain, whose job it is to keep us safe, it doesn't want uncertainty and unpredictability. It wants routine, familiarity, and so on. But actually, if we think about that as we introduce the emotional brain to a new experience, we show it that it's, we're safe, and it's just something that we haven't had before. That anxiety tends to decrease, and then we tend to get something from the new experience then, you know what I mean? So feeling uncertain or feeling a bit scared of a new experience is completely normal. Lean into it, and you'll tend to be enriched in some way by it.
Definitely. And the more that we do it, the more that we'll embrace that uncertainty, won't we, as well?
Exactly.
The more that we'll feel, actually, I've done this before, so it feels uncertain, but I know I'm going to be safe.
You kind of, the idea of uncertainty becomes less scary, doesn't it? So completely.
I just had this image, you mentioned walking through a park, and so I had this image of oh, if I go to that new park, oh, what if there's like shark infested waters there? It's not a normal park. I'm going to be attacked by something I don't know. And just, yeah, like, oh, no, okay. It's just beautiful. It's a nice park. Or I'm
That's
meeting
it.
this new person. I'm going to go talk to this person that I haven't talked to before. Or I'm trying whatever new, like you say, like it's that process of learning about yourself. It's learning how to cope with those situations and knowing that you can, and reminding yourself that you can, and that they're not always shark infested waters waiting around the end.
Only in Manchester.
Only in Manchester. Definitely. We have those shark infested waters and piranhas occasionally.
Yeah, I've heard about that as well.
Exactly.
So no one comes down the 62, Matt.
The iron curtain corridor, that M62 between Liverpool and Manchester.
It is. Mark, if people would like to connect with you more, where might they be able to find you?
So the best place is probably Instagram. You can drop me an email on at my mdtherapy@hotmail.com. But the best place is probably to drop me a message on Instagram. So it's Mark Dawson Therapy on Instagram, or of course we've got the Therapy Shed podcast, which is also on all the social media jazz. But yeah, mainly Instagram's the kind of first port of call. So you can find us there.
Wonderful. And we'll make sure to get all those links in the show notes as well. So if the listener wants to just go and click on it, then they can easily find you as well.
No, I appreciate that. Guys, this has been really enjoyed. Very much for inviting me on, and good luck with the podcast. You can have an episode after this where it's just you two guys, and you can talk about Mark. And a bit strange him, wasn't he?
Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. Yeah, I love spending time with you anyway. So for you to be a part of this has been amazing.
It's been so wonderful getting to know you.
Cheers.
Definitely.
Thanks, guys. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. It's been real good fun, and good luck. Good luck with the future of the podcast. I'm sure it'll go great.
Thank you. You too, with the Therapy Shed podcast, and with work and private practice and everything as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm feeling much happier than when I first woke up this morning after doing this.
Yay!
Thank you. Job done.
Our
Mic drop.
here is done.
All right. Thank you again.
Cheers, guys. See ya.
Thanks, guys. Bye. At the Happy Edit podcast, we're mindful that the podcast is not in replacement of therapy. If you do need further support, please do contact us on our contact details in the show notes. And we're more than happy to offer further support and guidance and direct you to places like the counselling directory or therapy directories. If you do also need further support, we would also recommend you contacting your primary healthcare provider. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you all soon.